Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the DSL podcast.
Afternoon.
Yeah,
Or
it's
evening.
the camera. You hit the fourth wall.
Is that not
That's
the
what the
thing?
fourth wall when you talk directly
Okay,
to the camera.
Okay.
But it's okay. It's his first show, everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So you might have seen we're joined by a new face today. It's Gary, our operations director. Gary, welcome.
Thank you
to
for
your
welcoming
first
me
show.
today. Yes, hopefully the first of many.
Yeah, that's
See what the
correct answer.
see what the feedback comes.
Correct answer. So, do you want to just give an introduction? How long you've worked here?
Yes.
A brief overview of what your roles and
Okay, it
responsibilities
might
are.
take longer than the podcast format.
Let's just
But
try.
let's kind of condense
Yeah.
it. So I worked here for I think it'll be 13 years this August.
Yeah.
Started as production manager. Responsible for everything coming in and going out. I moved into operations manager, and then November 2019 become operations director, and so everything post sale becomes my responsibility from that point, including quality and various other sort of non-physical aspects.
Yeah.
Purchasing, supply management, and that area as well. So yeah,
Lots of things to
for
consider.
12 years, so I must be doing something right.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's still here.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, one of the things that Gary, or a stage of our process, Gary works closely with, is prototyping. So this is when we've had a customer, we've worked with them, we've designed what they want to design, and when you design something, you need to create prototypes.
You do.
So for people that are not familiar with what a prototype is, can you summarize that in a sentence? What
Yes.
would you say a prototype is?
It is a small run of the build
Yeah.
that will prove the design,
Okay.
and that will highlight any issues, hopefully not, but
Yeah.
any issues within that design that you're fixing for either a pre-production run or a production run.
Okay.
You do not really want to go into a build of thousands on the back of a good design.
And even the best design is gonna need prototypes.
Yes, design is an art form. It's a bringing together of different components that are laid out on a board with underlying tracks, and with the best designers in the world, sometimes data sheets aren't correct.
Yeah.
And you'll only find that out the first time you power that product up.
Yeah.
And test it.
Okay.
So yeah, my advice is you always prototype.
So from that point of view, you mentioned about a production run and a prototype run.
Mm-hmm.
What are the key differences between the two? Because one you touched on then was obviously quantity.
Yeah, so your production run should be what you are selling, what your client is selling, and that should be have the confidence to build in quantity.
Yeah.
So that when you receive and test, you can then sell that without any further problems.
Yeah.
That, in a nutshell, is the production run. But it is quantity that is then the product the client will sell to their
go
market.
On and sell. And with the prototype, because with a CEM, a manufacturer, they're used 9 times out of 10, well, 100 times out of 100 probably, but larger quantities. So if you're doing prototypes for less quantities, which you will be,
mm-hmm.
Am I right in saying there's going to be increased unit pricing
because
of that?
Yes.
So what are the reasons for people that don't understand? Because maybe you're designing and they've got a unit price in their mind.
Yep.
And we've talked about it throughout the process, and it gets to prototyping.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that we would leave it this late, because they'll be well aware at the start.
Yeah.
But it gets to prototyping, and there's a jump in cost for these smaller quantities. What are the main reasons for that usually? Quantities is one of course, but also machinery, that type of thing.
So a very low run attracts a number of costs that tend to get amortized within production runs.
Right.
So, for example, SMT placements.
So SMT placement
is surface mount technology.
Okay.
So it's the machine placing certain components onto PCBs.
Yeah.
And then there's a flip side. There's through-hole components which are placed conventionally by hand, by people.
Is there like an advantage, disadvantage to either, or?
There are some components still that machines can't fit. The machines are getting better, and they're developing new techniques to move into that world. And we're kind of, for the last 10 years, a halfway house. Some things that previously couldn't be can now be picked by a machine and placed. But there are still those that
Is that just due to size, is complexity?
Probably complexity, how a machine could grab a certain part and put it in. There are now developed little grabbers that will pick up connectors and things for you. Because mainly the machines use feeders, and those feeders need a lead in.
Right.
Some manufacturers allow a tape of nothing to be connected and use that as a lead in. Other machine manufacturers actually need components on the reel, and therefore you lose a number of components. Which is known as attrition.
Right. So for people that don't know, with the components, they come in reels. Let's go back.
Let's go to the basics.
Yeah. So if you said to me, you need to order a load of components, how are they likely to arrive? Are they reels all the time?
So your resistors, your capacitors, a number of other components will come on plastic reels.
Just like the old reels for films.
Exactly.
Go in cinemas.
Think of that.
Back
you're in the right area.
Yeah.
Your ICs and certain other components, they'll come in trays.
Yeah.
Therefore, you don't need as much in terms of attrition there because you're not feeding a tray into a feeder.
Right.
So they'll be loaded to the machine in a different way, and they'll be picked by the machine.
Right. Okay.
So and because they're a higher quantity, you don't want to be buying a lot more than you need. Whereas a resistor is a fraction of a pence. So if you need 50 or 100, the actual cost isn't huge. But across the whole BOM, there is an attrition, which amortized over a production of 5 or 10 adds cost.
Okay.
Amortized that same attrition, it doesn't matter if you're running 5 or 1,000, that attrition will be the same. So of course you amortize that across a much higher figure. That cost suddenly becomes
okay.
Someone has to set that machine up, so that's a physical person loading the machine in the right order, and that can take some hours. I don't know the exact figure, but it could take some hours. So again, that person's time needs to be amortized into the unit pricing. And same with the price. Smaller quantity, higher amortized cost versus higher quantity.
And with the setup, once a machine's been set up for a design, and then say they go into production, they wouldn't have to pay for that again.
The setup is already there. So if you imagine you've done your production, your prototype run, so the machine is set up. But once you've completed that production, that prototype production, that machine will be taken off. So the next job for customer X can be run. So when you come to produce your pre-production or production batch, the machine has to be set up again. So that cost is always again within the unit pricing.
Okay.
Again, it's just more noticeable at the lower end of quantity.
So what with the customers that you've dealt with over the 13 years, did you say? 12 or 13?
13, yeah.
What percentage would you say are familiar with, attrition and the prototyping processing in sort of full?
Yeah, I'd say maybe 40% clients that we've dealt with over the years are familiar because they are either manufacturing product themselves elsewhere, or have dealt with us before that level. 60%, it doesn't even come necessarily into their thinking, and it's maybe because they're just not familiar with the industry that they're dealing with, and we can educate them accordingly as the questions inevitably arrive.
Yeah, I've found as well, some people just get a price stuck in their head. They hear it at some point, and then they don't veer off that. So when it comes to this stage, they don't know where this has come from, and you kind of have to go through it again.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm keen for people to make sure that everyone is fully aware of what can happen. And is with the prototyping, because once you've actually got your physical prototypes, so let's say you design something, or you personally, the engineer, have designed something, you've received the prototypes. The next step is to obviously test them. Is there anything that has to be done when you get them? Do you have a look at them? Do you examine them? What's a general kind of
Yeah, generally there's a visual aspect to the first check. Is it what we told our CEOs to make? But we would generally look as sort of solder level checks to look for shorts and that kind of visual thing. Our CEMs AOI inspect, so the process should pick up any component level errors. So we're looking at the cleanliness of the product from our suppliers as a visual level. Then that will probably go to the engineer who designed it. And they'll perform initially some power rail checks to make sure that aspect of the design is sound. And then that will move into probably more client and us specific requirements. There will be a limit to us being able to test prototypes fully because we're not going to integrate them into the final system. So the agreement is what inputs, outputs can we use that represent the final products, and that's the agreement of, okay, if you can get it to that level and prove that's working, we're happy then to take it and take the final stage that bit further.
And then when the customers had it, they've used it, they're happy with it. It's signed off.
The next stage can be a bit of a split in terms of EMC testing. So I was going to say we can then take it down that route on their behalf, or if they've got their own test house.
And with EMC testing is, how would you explain EMC testing to
every electrical product emits noise, field, that sort of thing, and you are to make sure that your product is within the parameters of certain standards. Please don't ask me to state the standard.
That's fine.
That's more on the engineering side.
That'll be another episode.
That'll be a good one. So you just have to make sure that your product is complying with the legal requirements of electronic products in the marketplace.
So this be like when, well, maybe not so much now, where you walk past something and maybe a radio signal will go funny because there's interference.
That is,
you need to basically make sure that you're not,
that your product sitting somewhere is not affecting something in the air around. That's right. Something serious as pacemakers. Or like say your TV or radio.
Only fools and horses and playing. Well, Nelson Mandela House. So with the prototyping, I know it's hard to say how long it takes. Is there, because there's less to be made, does that affect time scales generally?
It can make things,
because people think if there's less, it's gonna be quicker.
Now there is some truth to that.
Okay.
The current market has kind of turned that on its head, because you can plan for all your components to come in, and then the supplier or the manufacturer, the last minute's in that, not having that, or it's out of stock when you come to order it. Which is why we always try, if the client is willing, to purchase ahead of prototype runs.
I was going to say
we've done for a recent client, and that worked really, really well. Having that kit in hand certainly speeds up the production as well, the prototype run. But if we think of the market as it used to be, yes, you could probably get a small 5 to 10 production run within a 15-day window. There's a cost for that, so the quicker you go, the higher the cost, because you need to pay more to your PCBs, you need to quicker on a quicker service. There is a higher charge for that. Components, not so much, because if they're available, they're available. It doesn't make a difference how quickly you purchase them. But again, on the assembly side, yeah, you're putting a faster processing, so there's a cost for that. We used to offer both quick turn and standard turn, and allow the client to determine how quickly they wanted them over.
Well, yeah, that was something that could be offered, wasn't it? How quickly do you want them? And really, we were in a position, if they said, "Oh, we need them by whenever," we could go, "This is the price." But with what's going on, that's
it's
not the
as
case.
easy, no. But the forward component purchasing is definitely the way to help get those in at a quicker speed. Because at that point, you're only waiting for your PCBs and your assembly time.
I mean, for people that, I think we mentioned it before, but we've done it. We've always done it, as far as I can remember, where you're designing something. We give the customer the option to present us with a PO just to cover the forward purchase of components, so that when it comes to prototype stages, we can get them made.
Yeah.
Now, since everything that's gone on with
the market,
everything that's gone on, it's very difficult to get to, say, a prototyping stage and then go, let's go out and get the components.
Yeah.
Because by that point,
in stock,
you've got
those not in stock today. That's the way it is at the moment. Yeah.
And I think as well, so allowing us to also get the components in early, and also the engineers design with, they're spending more time selecting components because they want to make sure that their stock of the one they're using, there's drop-in replacements as well.
Yeah.
So that actually, which is not always possible, which then means that they can actually go into production.
Yeah.
But again, it's changing so quickly. If you were a betting man, Gary, would you be willing to put a date forward where you think this situation with components would be over?
Currently,
or have you heard anything?
I've not heard too much. I've heard snippets.
Yeah.
I would say we're still looking well into next year.
Yeah.
For this to settle down. And what I have heard is that whether the market will go back to exactly how it was. I think that it will be a different landscape. It will certainly be better than it is now, because it can't get any worse. But
no, I don't say that, actually, Gary.
No, I'll probably curse the world there, maybe. Yeah. That flippant comment, but I think there'll be a slightly different way the manufacturers are going to be selling to the market, and I can't tell you what that is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But talking to purchasers at CEMs, and the contacts they have, that's the sort of feeling they're starting to get. So we're not at a turning point just yet.
No,
by any means. But maybe towards the end of the year, we might start seeing those green shoots of positivity. Yeah.
But you said before, because the component market at the minute, I mean, what's going on with it? We talked about like traceable parts, and people like scrubbing off things on components that are not traceable.
Yeah.
When we say a traceable part, so a lot of people would obviously want to design using a traceable part. It sounds self-explanatory, but traceable part, you know where it's come from.
Yeah, you can trace the batch and lot through to the manufacturer. So it doesn't matter if you want from DigiKey or RS or Farnell. That part will be traceable all the way back to source, effectively.
Okay. And what, with everything that's going on with that, the traceable parts are obviously hard to come by, because the big companies are just hoovering them all up.
Yeah.
And you can't get them. So you mentioned to me once about companies removing the traceability, and also the location in which they can be sold.
Yeah,
what kind of stuff's going on?
Well, there was something we heard that you've got territories of components. Obviously, you've got the Asian market, the European market, and the Americas.
Yeah.
Now, the control is that the Asian market shouldn't be selling to the other markets.
Yeah.
Always controlled. But the way the world is, people will find a way to make that happen. One of the ways is to potentially remove. Now, I've not seen this, but potentially remove the lot codes,
Okay.
because then they become untraceable back to source,
Yeah.
and therefore
They can sell them.
they can be sold through means that are out there
Yeah.
to other markets, and therefore it cannot get back to them in theory that it's come from an area where it should not have left to sell elsewhere. So so you are buying a genuine
but it's just
part, but it looks tampered with,
and that is
and you look at that and
but that's the risk, isn't it? Because I don't know, for components, there's a website called Octopart, which is basically
it's a window to the
component,
component. Yeah.
and it shows you all the what we would consider traceable sites and what they have to offer, and then you have these other ones, the others that show up that say they have tens of thousands of stock. Now, are those other suppliers complete liars, or in amongst that lot, are there traceable stock? Is it a gamble that sometimes, people are taking? Some are working out, some are not, and that's just the way it is, and you kind of have to go with it.
Now, I don't think anyone knows maybe somewhere deep in their website, but what Octopart's criteria is for displaying these companies. It could be, if someone's showing stock of this, we'll display it. It could be as simple and black and white as that. Maybe they do some vetting of these, and certainly companies of DigiKey stand in, they're not going to
question.
They're genuine, we know that, the world knows that. So it is a bit of a risk for the first time buyer from that unknown source, because websites can be glittery, shiny, look the best. But one question kind of does remain is, if the world hasn't got any of these parts, how come somebody has 10, 20, 30,000 of them? Now, in the worst case, there are stories of people in desperate times punting on someone's got some of this stuff. You pay your money up front.
That's the one thing with these. It's all up front.
It's all up front cash, and generally people have received what they thought they were getting. They're good. Others receive nothing. Receive a box of empty shells. The chips are empty. Hooky parts. And the more dangerous ones are the ones that do look genuine and are an electronic component that if you don't go further with the testing, because there are obviously other ways of proving the component is genuine, you don't know till you stick it on the board and power it up.
What it might do.
Exactly. It could, seriously affect the integrity of your product. It might just simply not work. But then you've got rework costs that, if you can buy the genuine part to remove the old one, refit the new one, added time, added cost. So it is a bit of a potluck, and as the world gets tighter for components, people become more desperate and try these avenues. And then we can find, through talking to CEMs, which we've done recently, some seem to be actually genuine. Even though we'd look at them from a non-use perspective of saying, so it's that anecdotal evidence that says, well, he's used them 4 or 5 times. He's got customers who have used them because of his okay of them, and they seem to be okay. But someone's got to take the first step.
That's what I mean. You're in this situation. Is there any advice you could give to someone? Say they're looking for this component. What are the things to look out for on a website? What not to look out for? Are there any rules that you go by that you could pass on, or is it just a case of punting? And
as I said,
at the moment,
the first thing is everything that glitters is not gold.
Absolutely.
Don't be fooled by the website.
Right, okay.
If it looks awful, then it's probably not going to be
good stuff. It could be awful and actually have legit stuff.
Some people don't but they are trying to sell to the world, so I think you put some effort in. But if it was me trying to de-risk that, I would put a small order in with them. if you lose £100, and you go in with that thinking,
Yeah.
and you lose it because they are not who they say they are,
Yeah.
or don't deliver what they say, then you lost £100 and you walk away.
Mm.
If you go in with your first order of, I don't know, 5, 6,000, £10,000 for a desperate chip you need to keep your production line going,
Mm.
and that goes,
Mm.
you've not got your component, your production line is still at a standstill, and you're 10 grand down.
Mm.
So get the confidence, build it slowly.
Yeah.
You may have someone pushing you to say that our production line stopped and it's costing us X thousands or X a day. But suddenly, if you use a large portion of cash that's just going into the pocket of someone, you'll never get it back.
Yeah.
De-risk it by testing them.
Taking a bit longer.
Yeah.
It's better to, I suppose, drag things out so they last longer so you got time to test rather than just putting your money up front, getting all this stuff, and actually you're back to square one plus, down.
Yeah.
However
You
much
could take
spend.
that, if you really wanted to de-risk that to a degree, you could buy that small quantity, pass that to a company that can officially test and prove the further cost, of course, and really give you the confidence. I think you take it that way, but buyer beware, as always.
Yeah, and it will be for the time being.
Certainly, yeah.
And just with PCB manufacturers, CEMs in general, generally, some people are happy to manufacture in the UK. Some people want large quantity made elsewhere in the Far East. What are the advantages and disadvantages of both? We deal a lot with, all UK manufacture.
Yeah.
For you, what's beneficial for you by doing that? What's the positives? Positives for you, positives for the customer, negatives for you, negatives for the customer.
So for me, they're local.
Yeah.
They're in the UK. You can go and visit those companies fairly easily. Even if they're far north of England, in Scotland, you can get to them very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So if you have problems, you can nip those in the bud and kind of see them, talk to them, especially with teams as well. Obviously, if you go further afield, you need to again de-risk that process somehow. So probably more visits in the early stages of that working relationship. I think if you were to find someone that proved themselves with you, like we have with our current CEMs, once they've proven to us, then we're quite happy to put more work with them.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry too much about them. We still monitor them and check on them and have meetings with them and all that kind of supply management. But for me, it's the distance, and of course, a product which you would be ordering in volume to make it worth going further afield, arriving and having problems, because you're going to want to return it potentially it might need returning for rework rectification or something. Of course, there's a huge cost then of
getting it back,
pushing it back that way, an environmental impact of pushing it that way, of shipping back and forth. And the management of them, because they're making something for you, you want to make sure they're doing that correct. So there's probably a bit more in the early days of that relationship, visiting, which is again the cost, environmental impact of the flights to wherever these places would be. People do it, businesses do it, so it's not detrimental, but I think there's a higher management level to get confidence in the early days.
Is this for Far East
or anywhere not further?
Yeah.
And there's still a level of de-risking with any manufacturer, doesn't it? I mean, we work in the world of CEMs, but any manufacturer is building, making something for you. You want to make sure they deliver what they say they can, and anyone can say at a first meeting, yeah, we never have a problem with this, and we don't do anything with that. Manufacturing, unfortunately, does have issues.
Yeah.
One of the keys there is to how they react to
Well,
those issues.
yeah, that's an interesting thing as well, because
people are working expressly, people make errors. It happens.
But
it's how they correct those.
Yeah, that says I think it speaks volumes for the company you're dealing with.
Yeah.
How they correct mistakes. And there is kind of this notion that the UK manufacturer or someone close by is the quality, and going to the Far East is more cost effective.
Mm.
Is it as general as that, or
I've had no real direct experience with dealing with further afield manufacture for anything we've done. So I can't comment directly on that. We do know that some manufactured products, the quality isn't in there, but they're sold for very low value. I'm not just talking about electronics, I'm talking generally.
Yeah.
So, took my kids on holiday a little while ago, and the arcades, you get the tickets now.
Yeah.
And you go to the cabinet, and there's got this all of tack.
Quality goods.
Well, the kids love it. But nothing in there, certainly at the lower end of the ticket range, it's probably been bought for more than 20, 30p.
Yeah.
And the kids get it home, they enjoy it for a bit. And then the goo ball that they've got suddenly splits. It just gets chucked in the bin. But that's probably bought in for 10p.
Yeah, so it doesn't.
The kids aren't going to say, "Oh, Daddy, can you take that back?"
Yeah.
That's gone. You just say, "Well, it wasn't made very well, but it wasn't meant to last.
Yeah.
So there was no money into that."
I think Sorry, you got to say
something. Because you're never going to take that product back to the holiday resort and say, "Oh, I won this for free."
Yeah.
I paid through the game.
Well, you won with skill, Gary.
Exactly, of course, yeah. And you accept what it is.
Yeah.
Because that level of product is that. Yeah.
So for the level of product, because I'm sure, one of the things for me is just a language barrier. That would always be a concern for me, because I'm sure out in the Far East or anywhere, you've got people that can, knock stuff out at a great price, great components, but it's the communication. And I suppose with a UK manufacturer, I'd always feel comfort in the fact you can just drive and speak to them, and it's a lot easier to interpret what they're saying and pick up on things. But then again, if you're making toys for
to bring into the cheap end market, and that is exactly fine for what they're doing. Now, if you were to buy that product, if you were, I want this goo ball in this example, and you were charged £10 for it, you could probably afford for buying one in the first place. And 2 days later it pops, you're going to say, well, I paid £10, that should have lasted a bit longer, maybe even 2 weeks. But so that's that end, and then you've got the end where we are in, where our products rely on quality and reliability.
Exactly.
And there does come a cost with that.
Yeah.
And it's not just on what we do, anything manufactured is a cost versus quality. You can have the cheapest price for that manufactured good and have no quality in it.
Yeah.
And some people would look at that cost price and say, well, that's great, but then it doesn't last for more than a year. Or you can go the other way and have a very high level of quality, and that doesn't always necessarily mean longevity. Gives people some level of comfort, certainly. But that end is likely to have more longevity in its products, because they will look more intrinsically at where they're buying products from, how they're maintaining their processes, how they're keeping a tab on improving their quality continually. I remember the guys that just knock something out the door at a price that's acceptable to the client.
I think I've spoken to a few people that say have been dealing with the Far East, and they have a price in mind. and then they come to like me, and we talk about what the price is, and they're still thinking, "Oh, hold on, I get this from China," but then they forget why they're coming to us in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think, or what I'm trying to do is, I mean, the conversation we had today is producing some information that we can send to people, you know, the
Yeah.
quality versus cost, prototyping process, so we can say that, there you go,
Yeah.
have a read through that. Any questions? Well, I think, Gary, as a debut, you've got to be happy with that.
It flowed.
It flowed, there's no issues.
There's no stuttering, no pauses.
Sprite was giving me a bit of, that's a few secret
But
buttons out.
there'll be a bottle of water next time, that's for sure.
Oh dear, dry mouth.
Dry mouth, yeah. But no, I've enjoyed that.
Good. Well, that's
the listeners have enjoyed, and the viewers have enjoyed that.
See, he's learning.
Yeah.
Always quote the listeners and everything. Yeah. So we'll be back soon with some other bits and pieces. And I said we'll produce some articles based on what
Yeah.
Gary talked about today, and we will speak to you again soon. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
And